Welcome to AgencyRise, the podcast where digital marketing agencies rise together. I'm your host, Chris Rudolph. I've spent the last decade coaching digital agency founders, helping them scale, systemize operations, and break free from the day-to-day grind. So on this podcast, we'll talk about what really moves the needle for agencies: getting clients, building a team, creating systems, productivity, focus, and freedom. So no hype here, no guru nonsense, just real conversations from the agency trenches. So today, my guest is Tara Ingalls, the founder of Tingles Graphic Design, based in Madison, Wisconsin. Tara helps founders bring clarity and consistency to their brands, and she's built a creative agency that balances craft, client trust, and sustainability. So, Tara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit more about you and your agency.
Yeah, so Tingles Graphic Design is a 26-year-old marketing and website development firm. We are located in Fitchburg, which is just outside Madison. It's about 5 miles from Madison. I started freelancing back in 99, 2000, and really loved working with small business, love working with nonprofits. And I was working full-time at an insurance agency. I was honestly just kind of bored and wanted to do a little bit of part-time freelance stuff. And I was enjoying it so much that I decided, to make a career out of freelance. I left my job, the security of my safety net, 3 days after September 11th hit. So that was a little
Wow.
bit concerning for my family. But what was interesting about that time was that just like, the recessions and when things happen in the United States that are a little bit like disruptive, a lot of people, they end up trimming their marketing, which means they start to outsource instead of having unstaffed designers. So I ended up getting quite a number of clients that were larger name clients at that time, which helped me kind of sustain and have like a really good income coming in those first couple months. But yeah, just it's grown since then. Our focus is still the same. We still work with nonprofits, startups, small business. I feel like, there's a lot of agencies in Madison. There's a lot of freelancers in Madison, and we're kind of a little sweet spot in between. We've kind of flown under the radar a little bit. I always was just talking to my staff the other day, and I'm like, I fully expected that one day I would run out of nonprofits and startups to work with. But Madison is such a phenomenal hotbed for entrepreneurs. There's so many resources here. You've got your Small Business Development Center, you've got SCORE, Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative. So there's a lot of organizations that are very pro business and very pro women owned businesses. So, yeah, I've been very blessed to work in a career for, 26 years or a little bit longer than that I just find so much joy and passion and get out of bed every day for. So, yeah.
I love that,
In a
Tara. That
nutshell.
I can't tell you how many other agency founders I've talked to that they stepped out, they took the leap, and they were around like really disruptive times, and it was a leap of faith.
Yeah.
But how those times of disruption are times of opportunity as well. I just I find it fascinating that you shared that because yeah, you innovate and you get creative out of necessity.
Well, I had gotten married in 2000 and my email prefix changed from T Hallam, which was my maiden name, to T Ingalls, which is my married name. And everyone thought that was really funny and had like a phonetic spelling to Tingles, And so when I started freelancing, I spelled design funny too. It was like DZYN or something like that. And really, I was freelancing because we wanted to start a family right away. And we couldn't get pregnant. And so like honestly, 5 years went by and I think we were in Mexico on spring break or vacation or something. And I said, if kids aren't in the cards for us, I would like to make a go of this. Like I'd like to move out of this small little, office space that we're in. I'd like to hire 2 more employees. And I did that and like got back from that trip and 8 weeks later found out I was expecting. It was like,
Oh wow.
oh crap. So we had a little bassinet in behind my desk for my firstborn, which was, awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I never intended ever to have an agency. I never intended to have staff. I just wanted to, have a small little income that I could have while I, was raising a family from home. And now I'm just doing it all, Chris.
Yeah. No, that's great. I think that'll be really helpful for I know those of us out here listening that They wasn't part of this grand, 10 or 20-year plan. And,
Yeah,
but it was like value based on like, I know you mentioned like family is really
yeah,
important for you. And I love that. And, it is possible, like, as you get started, like the flexibility and then, it can ebb and flow with you
yeah,
as in different life stages as well.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any other thinking, I know you've got a long history, probably like an OG, like this is, agencies and creative agencies are, the creative agencies are really big, the big thing right now, but you have a lot of years in this. What have been maybe some pivots or mistakes or moments that really shaped your agency that you can think of over the years?
I get asked this question when I get, like, interviewed for articles and stuff, and I look at challenges very differently, I think, than other people. I definitely feel like there's a plan for me that's somewhat out of my control, so whenever I face adversity or like when COVID happened, I kind of just always ask myself, what does this make possible? So we're faced with, a devastation where we're all of a sudden we left on a Friday and we didn't come back for 9 months, like it was this crazy thing. And it was like, what does this make possible was really like, leaning our process and really understanding, how we can work remotely and leaning on our strength, which at the time when COVID hit was our culture of our company and how close we were as a family and how we cared about each other. It was a very scary time. And so, I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge is obviously when the pandemic hit was just maintaining really good relationships with our staff, but then also our being there to support our clients. A lot of our new clients that came on board in 2020 were actually clients of other agencies that just went dark. Like they just shut their doors. They didn't have an online presence. They didn't put anything on their website stating that they were doing anything to support their staff or their clients. And to me, it just was a missed opportunity to really show like the compassionate side of my firm and how we support our customers. And we ended up onboarding a lot of clients that needed website, edits quickly to talk about curbside or how they were dealing with the 6 feet apart, though all of the things that happened. 2021 ended up being my biggest and most profitable year ever, which is crazy to me when I think about that. The same thing happened in 2009. 2009 was my biggest profitable year. It's because I kind of like doubled down and just got really centered on what my core values are, which are, compassion, creativity, connection, fun, those things that I live and the things that I have built my company on versus trying to like reinvent the wheel or something like that when adversity hits. But I think just what does that make possible is just a really positive question that I have taught my girl. I have 3 daughters, and I've taught them to think in that frame of mind. It takes a lot of the negativity of a challenge, and I wouldn't say it pushes it aside, but it definitely reframes and refocuses your energy into thinking, "Okay, well, I'm about to lose my job. What does this make possible? I'm about to fail this class," which hasn't happened for my kids, but like, if there's something that like I know I'm getting a C or I'm getting a B, what does this make possible? So it's just, I think kind of that it's a different way of looking at adversity and challenges. And so I feel like, I mean, I've had things I've had to hurdle, things that have really rocked me to my core in my career, but I feel like it's again, a learning experience. It's something that I share with my team. I don't keep anything from them, fully transparent in everything about my business, which I've got one designer that's been with me for 13 years, another for almost 8 years. And then we have a new designer who's been with me. She'll be celebrating a year in April. So, 2 very long-term employees, very solid, very loyal. Really, I can go on vacation. I know things are okay, which is nice as a business owner to have that ability and that strength here back at the office. But yeah, it's just a little different than what I've learned talking to other business owners and even people in the creative field. So,
Yeah, I love that, that mindset shift and a challenge. I think that's something that those of us who are listening are going to really like, that's going to hit home because, it may be the acceleration of AI. or
Yeah.
it could be like economic uncertainty or political, there's a lot of things that are shifting and changing right
Yeah.
now. So I thank you for sharing that. I'm curious,
Yeah.
I know like many of us in the agency world, like we didn't go to school for this type of thing. So I'm
Yeah. I'm
curious like
self-taught.
what your education and experiences were like before you started.
Yeah, so my daughter, I have a daughter who's attending the UW-Madison. That's where I went to school, and she went into this school knowing she wants to go into elementary education. Like, she already has the path, she knows what classes she needs to take, she's very determined and very driven. I had no clue when I went to school, and I honestly didn't declare a major, I don't think, until 2nd semester of my junior year, and I'm sure my dad is not gonna be happy to hear that, but because he was paying for my education, but I ended up double majoring in communications and journalism. And back then, the graphic design was in the art school. And like, I didn't think of myself as an artist. I didn't think that marketing was necessarily like an art form. So I have a double major in communications, which I do feel like I use every day, obviously. The the journalism had like an advertising sequence. I took a lot of theory of design and those kinds of things. But out of college, my first job was I was kind of a glorified secretary for an agency that's not in business anymore. I was making coffee and running errands, and I was kind of miserable. And I was like, this isn't what I have a double major from a top 10 university, like a Big 10 university. Like, I shouldn't be making coffee and running errands. So I was going to go back to school because it was an agency, and I was really finding an affinity towards what the designers were doing, what their day to day was like, their energy, their vibe, all that. So I was going to go back to school at Madison College. And so I got a temp job over the summer. And that landed me at WPS Health Insurance I was actually at Epic Life Insurance, and I was an insurance underwriter. I was a quoter for 6 months, and then I was an underwriter for 6 months. So I was there doing not graphic design. And then when Epic ended up folding, they were like, "Hey, we've got this parent company, WPS. Do you want to work in the communications department?" You kind of At that point, I was like redoing the fax cover sheets and like the business cards and stuff. So I had so much experience. But I went and I learned on the job. Like, I have some of my original poster designs for, it's laughable that I have a career 25 years later. But I learned on the job 40 hours a week. I was under two other designers that, kind of showed me the ropes. I was doing insurance form creation and brochures. This was way before digital marketing and social media and all that. So a lot of print collateral, that kind of thing. And again, like, started the conversation just saying like I was bored. I had like three colors, four fonts to choose from. And yeah, I was just bored. So that's why I started freelancing. Yeah, self-taught in every shape but I will say that, like, the years that I was at WPS have given me an eye for layout, and the designers that I have now, like, I can spot something that's off center from a mile away. And they'll be like, "Tara, it's centered." I'm like, "Check again." And they'll be like, "Oh my God, it was like a pixel off." It's just like a superpower, I think, from doing forms for like 3 years. So, yeah, so that's kind of my role now, is to just I'm creative director, I like to look at everything, but I don't design hardly at all anymore. I leave that to my team, but I still do enjoy the process and meeting with clients, and that's my role now, is meeting with clients, quoting, doing consulting. That is something that changed during COVID, as I started offering general marketing consulting for clients that were really paralyzed with the pandemic and didn't know how to shift their business. And so now I offer consulting as a service. If you have an agency that you're working with, or you have an agency that you're not sure if it's working, I can kind of come and give a third party eye on something, and I love doing that. I get paid to just blab about my experience, so it's fun.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Looking back, what have been some of the biggest drivers of your agency's growth?
I do a lot of networking. Networking has been my number one source of referrals aside from client referrals. I get leads from Google. We have really good search engine optimization for our website, but I typically find that those leads don't I mean, my closing rate on those leads is a lot less than when I'm meeting someone and there's a warm introduction and things like that. So networking, being part of the community, donating back to nonprofits. We last year gave away $25,000 in the form of website grants for nonprofits, and we've given over $200,000 to nonprofits since we started that in 2010. And I love that. part about my business. I really feel like nonprofits just honestly, they're just what keeps the underbelly of our city alive and people healthy and mental and physical and all those things. And I just want to find a way to give back. So we started a program called the Giving Tree in 2010. Which is just it's just a grant application where if they have a need, like an event coming up, a fundraiser, they need a website, they need a logo, whatever it is, they can apply for a grant. And then based on where we are within the quarter, the grant could be from $500 to up to $2,500 towards their project. And last year we were like, let's just do websites. So we just did 10 websites for 10 nonprofits at $2,500 a piece, and it went over really well. Some of those we're still working on.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. Yeah, how you can turn, yeah, look after your community and like invest
Yeah.
in your community. So
Yeah.
that's super.
Yeah.
On the flip side, like what has been like some of the most painful lessons that you've had to learn the hard way along the way?
Painful lessons. I don't hate this question because I can never think of anything. I just don't dwell on the past, Chris. I am
Yes.
always looking forward. Like, I don't know if this is a lesson, but my husband's been in the car industry his whole career in lots of different levels and stuff. And he's cordial with like his employees and things like that. But the level of care that I have for my team goes above and beyond just being their boss. Like, I really care about their mental health, their physical health, things like that. And that, becomes a challenge when they decide to leave the firm. And that is
Mm.
hard for me because I do take it personally. I do feel like I did something wrong, or I feel, so I've had to, I mean, I haven't had a lot of turnover, obviously, with 2 employees that have been with me as long as they have, but I do feel like sometimes it has come back to nip me where somebody has left the firm and I've heard through the grapevine that they left because I was not a boss that they could learn from. In a way, like my leadership style is just more, let's do it together, not do it for me. And that
Mhm.
I never wanted to work for a boss like the one I had at WPS. It was, reviews were really hard and I ended up in tears every time. And so I don't do employee reviews with my staff. If I have a concern or if I have a kudos, I'm going to tell them when I have that. I'm not going to wait a year to bring up something that happened a year ago. So I just have this very open door policy and it's really literal that way. Like, so I think that's a challenge, can be a challenge. And also it's probably the thing I'm most proud of is the culture in my company. We have this calendar in the kitchen and it's a celebrate everything calendar. So it's like those weird holidays, like Oreo
Mhm.
Day and like whatever.
Yeah,
So when we
I
flip
love
the
it.
calendar, every employee gets to pick a day where we do a team builder. So 4 times a month, we do a team builder of some sort. And mine was International Inspire Your Heart with Art. And so we painted the windows on the outside of our office suite with like Valentines and hearts and like we just did crafts, like basically did crafts for an hour. And I'll tell you, like the bucket filling that did for my team, like I could tell like they just when we were done, they sat down, they crammed and got the rest of their work done because it was the end of the month. And I don't know, it just like to me is like I'm kind of a goofy person that way. Like, let's just stop what we're doing and come in the conference room. And I had this entire giant table laid out with paints and markers. And like I was like, there were 4 windows, like pick a window and do something. And it was just like so fun. We had so much fun. We had people in the atrium coming out and asking, what are we doing? And we're like, we're painting, do you want some paints? You could paint your windows. And the interior design ladies next to us were like, yeah, give us some paint. We'll just put some hearts on our windows and stuff. And it was just like, there's a cleaning service across the hall and they speak Spanish. So I can't always understand what they're saying. But I said to my team, I said, what are the chances that they're saying to their boss, why don't we get to paint our windows? But
I
so
love that.
that was a lot of it was, so that's just the culture of it. But again, like when I think about adversity, like things that upset me in the past or something like that was just hearing I did hear that one of my employees left during COVID because she felt I was too concerned with the mental well-being of my staff and not sales, which bye-bye. That's fine
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
I was worried about my own mental health. I had 3 girls like homeschooling, and one of my designers was pregnant at the time and she was due soon. And another designer was home with like a 6 or 8-year-old, I think, at the time. So it just, like I just really, I'm very proud of how we came through that as a team. And Yeah, I mean, that's probably one of, I mean, it's everyone will probably look back at that year and think, I should have done that or I should have done that. I don't really have any regrets from that. Like, I really feel like we made good decisions. We did what we needed to take care of ourselves, our clients, and yeah, it's a weird time.
Yeah. I love how you were sharing earlier about the like pick a holiday, and having like just having like fun and spontaneity.
Yeah.
And I bet that isn't the norm in most agencies, very performance driven.
Yes.
There's always like, the task list board is, there's always pressure to scale that
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that is missed. So I think that's really something practical of like think about those of you who are listening out there, like what can that be like for your agency and the culture of your team and
Yeah.
like Tara was saying, just like what that did to, everyone was like that really filled their tanks and then they're ready to go
Yeah.
and their work is even better, especially if you're in like you need your team to be creative.
Yes. Yeah. So that's one thing for sure. So we moved into this space in September of 24, and our prior space was actually right like a block away from McKee Parks, which is a gorgeous like walking path. And I mean, it's been way too cold in Wisconsin to walk. So we're a little stir crazy and going out on nature walks and doing scavenger hunts and listening to music and just doing things like outside of the office is a huge like creative refiller. And when you can't do that in the winter, you got to think of other things. And we went and painted pottery a couple weeks ago for my birthday. We've done make your own pottery, like where we've done like the pottery wheel. We went to a paint, like wine and sip kind of thing. We didn't have wine, but we did like a paint thing. And we've done a photography class. So I feel like the more creative outlets that you can fill that creative juice, get the juices going, even if it doesn't necessarily apply to what we do necessarily. It just helps you. I don't know, it just like unlocks something that I really feel like, is important in the creative world. I mean, yeah, I mean, I worked with a business coach in 2008 and he really never understood why my designers couldn't bill more than 50 to 60% of their day. And he was really boggled by that. And the minute that I started kind of cracking down on that and like, I want you to log every hour that you're here and what you're doing every hour. A, that's not my personality at all. B, I don't really think I even looked at those reports. But what it did is it like created a lot of like stress for people to be accountable for every minute that they were clocked in. And, you need time sometimes to just sketch something that can't be billed to the client or go out and search Google Images for inspiration or look at a color wheel or look at a font directory or whatever it is, and you can't bill for that time, really. I mean, you probably could, but to me, it's that you can't bill for that time. And so when we started looking at these hours of what is being billed to the client, what's not being billed, a lot of what's not being billed is like going to the bathroom or answering a question or something that is just like I don't know, like I could never get that needle to move. And the minute I became like this manager that was like, "Dar, dar, dar, dar," try to get them to bill more hours, it just didn't become the culture anymore. It started feeling like an agency where it's like every minute, like an attorney, like every minute is billed and accounted for, which is not the environment that I would ever want to work in. And it was just out of our comfort zones completely. And Callie's been with me for so long that she's been through some of these like iterations of Tara's managements, and
Huh.
now she's an account manager. She's kinda stepped up and she took a role, that I took on after someone left after COVID, and she is now tracking billable hours, and she's setting goals for the team, and she's monitoring that, and that's that's such a breath of fresh air for me. She comes into my office and says, "What are you working on today?" And I'm like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So I don't mind it though, because like it does keep me accountable and I've never had that in my own company ever. But I'm part of the team. I'm doing billable work. And so, yeah, I remember one of the team builders we did, and we had an intern come in, and her class was doing a tour of an agency downtown in Madison, a big agency that's been around for a while. And I like, baseball capped it in, tried to pretend that I was not who I was, trying to get into this class, like thing. And they put all their designers in the basement. Like their designers
Ooh,
were, and then their salespeople were like on the account managers on the first floor. And all the designers were in the basement. And I remember touring and they had like bean bags and they had like a game room and it was cool and it was designed well, but there were no windows. And I just kept on thinking, I would never want to work in a place that there's not windows or in a place where I can't see outside or like things like that. And when we moved into our big space that we had before this space, the designers were all along the big bay windows that were in that space. They had full sunlight. They were floor to ceiling windows, gorgeous. And I don't know, like there's like a vibe I feel like that I just never wanted to have like that Mad Men kind of vibe, where
mhm.
it's like, I don't know, this is who I am. But and maybe you didn't
Yeah.
know that about me, but
No, that's great. I think that that's often really overlooked of like how do you create a place that people want to be and stay? And I
yeah,
just think of like how much time, money, headaches are when you have like turnover that you could prevent. Like sometimes, turnover just
yeah,
happens, but
yeah.
like just thinking like hearing about you with like the tenure of that trust and what that means to how you operate internally, but what that also means for your clients. And the key to like any successful agency is to have a strong retention, and it's
Mhm.
difficult if you become a revolving door. So I love that you share that. I think that's a perspective that we're not always reminded about. So thanks for sharing
Well,
that.
I ask them, like, what do you want out of this company? What are your professional goals? I mean, are you chasing a title? Are you chasing more money? Are you chasing a type of design or clientele that you want to work for? Things like that. And I've had designers and interns that wanted to work, like one of them left me to work at Pepsi in Milwaukee. That's amazing. But the minute that she got that job, she was like, I'm bored doing the same things over and over. When I was at Ingalls, I got to do doggy daycares and lawyers and cleaning company, like this huge smattering of different industries, which is what I absolutely love about my company too, is that they will never have the same day twice ever. And I ask them, what do you want to work on? Like, what can I go out and find at networking events? Who can I introduce myself to? Once they said, we want to do doggy daycares or we want to do like veterinarian, something a little more whimsical than maybe the law firms that they'd been working, accounting firms and stuff. And so I did that. I made it my mission to try to get, a couple of those under my belt, but they really lead those conversations. They wanted more packaging. So we became certified for packaging. So now we know what the elements are that need to be on the back of every packaging and what size fonts and all those different elements that go into that so that we can be a huge resource when somebody's like, yeah, I've got this cookie recipe and I think I could make a go of it. I don't know where to start. I can help them now and start that process for them. But that was all based on the designers saying we want to do more packaging. We want to do this. It's cool to see our products on the shelves. It's cool to see, people eating our products, stuff like that. So I think just asking them what they value. I mean, they'll always want more money. They always want more benefits. Those are things that like, are going to be different every agency, but there's a lot of wiggle room in the other stuff. There's a lot of
Mm,
wiggle room.
good.
4 hours a month having a cultural team builder that is driven by them. Like one of the other ones we did was National Croissant Day. Somebody brought in croissants and we cut them up and we ate them. And like that was 15 minutes and it was awesome. It was so silly, but so we have a hashtag celebrate everything. So if you go to our social media and Google or look for that hashtag, you'll find all the posts that are all of our celebrate posts. And this year I'm trying to do more video in social media because that is the trend. And so we're videotaping all of those so that people can
I
kind of
love it.
see. Yeah.
I love it. All right, we're gonna do the rapid fire round.
Oh god, I'm
What's
nervous
one
about that.
Yeah, we're gonna put you on the hot seat here. What's
All
one
right.
tool or piece of software that you can't live without?
Oh gosh, I should have thought of this because you said this one. Like professionally or personally?
Either one.
So I have an app called Time Hop on my phone that shows you photos and videos back in time on that day. And I think what I love most about that is that realizing that time is fleeting and that I'm looking at pictures of family trips and my kids when they were little and stuff. And it's just a good reminder that if there's something that you want to achieve or that's something that you want to do, the time is now to take that first step into doing it because time is it's going really quickly. So I love that app.
I love it. But what's one habit that helps you be more effective?
Asking my question, is this making my company money? Because I have a tendency to go down rabbit holes with lots of different projects and things that are not in my accountability for the day. And so if I ask myself that question, it usually gets me back to my to do list.
Nice. Nice. What's one book or mentor that has impacted you the most?
I'm not a big reader, but I will tell you the book, I'm not thinking of the title, but it's something like Eat a Frog Every Day or something like that, where the whole premise of the book is to stop procrastination on things that are on your to do
Oh, yeah.
list. And it's like, eat that frog. Yeah. Love it. Read it in an hour, super easy read, but it teaches you how to prioritize your day using like A, B, and C. And it helps you eat the frog early in the morning because if that's what you have to do, then the rest of the day should be easier.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And what's one piece of advice that you'd give agency founders listening right now?
I would say y- you will get it will be the most rewarding career if you identify what your core values are and build your company around those core values. So if you one of your core values is fun, figure out a way to incorporate fun into the company. If it's compassion, figure out a way to support the community through giving or whatever that is. And you can all have collective core values. It doesn't just have to be the boss. So in quarter one, we all identified our core values and then we picked one thing within each core value that we could do to fill our bucket within that core value just to make us happier humans in quarter one. So that was actually a really fun exercise.
I love that. And where's the best place online to learn more about you and your agency?
Tingles.com, Tingals.com is our website. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, and yes, we are going to start a TikTok account. So you can find us on TikTok probably in a couple weeks here.
Awesome. Well, Tara, this has been great. Thanks so much for sharing
Thank you for
just
having
all
me.
these great nuggets. And thanks for coming on the podcast today. And for everyone tuning in from the gym, in your car, or at your desk, thanks for joining us. If this episode was helpful for you, be sure to subscribe and share it with another agency founder who needs to hear it because agencies don't rise alone, they rise together. This is Agency Rise.